question, Mr. Todd. You mentioned from the Zoom in the chat box in the file, you mean, for us to download?
Yes, if you click on chat and then open chat, I have the option to send files to everybody. So it's like a holding pen, a storage box. So if you click on there, scroll up and down, you'll see several PDFs. You should do. If not, then
Not yet.
At a later date we can use our various messaging systems to get the document.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. 24. That's 21 parents. Bless you, Mr. Mills. You had a bad cough last time I spoke to you. You better?
Yeah, I've still got it. So I'll be coughing a lot.
Lovely, lovely. That's
always spice it up.
It's always very attractive.
It is. I love your empathy. It's great.
You started it. You started.
Keeps me going.
There's a new message.
Sean's going to say, "Behave, boys."
Yeah. Okay, that's.
I'll let the banter continue for a moment until we've got an audience.
Why don't we start at 10:05 and then we know we can go because they're still going up, right?
Yeah.
You can't see any documents there, no, Mr. Hutchinson?
No.
Huh. $10:04. I'm going to start in precisely 1 minute. Okay. Okay, everybody, good morning. I'm going to start our Parents as Learner University Preparation session. I'm going to introduce you first. Well, I'll introduce you to my 3 children who you can see, I think, on my screen. Can you see my screen? And
yeah.
Three children who look like they have an unfortunate father. Yes, that's that would be me. So that's just my screensaver, but it's apposite because I think it's useful to know that I've been through this process 3 times already as a father, as a fee-paying father, as a IB result worrying father, as an accommodation finding buy you furniture from IKEA father. So I've been where you're going. I've done it 3 times, and you do get through it. One of the biggest tools that you can have in your arsenal is preparation through communication, I think. So this fits nicely with our school focus for this year. On your screen right now, can you see a PowerPoint presentation, the role of ACG School?
Yes, I can.
Okay, all right. And so before I start, I'm going to introduce you to Mr. Guy Mills, who I'm sure you'll have heard of him. He's got a fantastic reputation because he's a great guy, and he heads up university guidance for ACG based in New Zealand, and he helps us out a tremendous amount. He is knowledgeable, and he's very amenable to conversations about your child. So I'm going to introduce him now. I'm going to start the presentation off, but would you like to say hello, Mr. Mills?
Hello, everyone. Very kind words. Thank you, sir. Yeah, we're here to help. Doesn't matter if we're in Jakarta or Auckland. We really want to make sure we do our best for you and your students.
Thank you. Right. Okay. So I'm just going to talk really for the first 10 minutes maybe about what the particular role of ACG Jakarta is in preparing your son or your daughter or both for what happens after school. So my stuff is kind of big picture, and then towards the end, I'll talk a little bit more in a little bit more detail about how we will specifically support them, the things that we'll do, things we're happy to do, things we can't really do and shouldn't be doing anyway. And then Mr. Mills will talk specifically about university applications, university preparation. All right, so we've talked before about communication, and I've spoken with Mr. Hutchinson a lot about this, and I want you to know that my particular take on this, again, this is borne out by experience, is that if a school and the people in that school on the teaching side and on the administration side, if they know your son, your daughter, if they understand what makes them tick, if they understand their personality, if they've actually spent time with them over a period of months, semesters, and years, then they're in a much better, a much stronger, a much more informed position to give them advice about the choices that the student will make. So we get to know them. This is one of our major roles. We get to know your child, because none of this is automatic. None of this is generic. None of it is big picture. None of it is one size fits all. So we start thinking about this latest in year 10. We start having conversations with individuals, their skills, talents. They talk to me, they talk to Mr. Hutchinson, they talk to advisors, they talk to teachers. This is part of the communication focus of this year. We really would like students to start talking about what makes them tick and what that might mean in terms of course choices in school, and then what happens after school. In year 13, then we are making very specific decisions. If it's college or university that they're going to, then we look at where and why. I'm going to let Mr. Mills focus on all of that, because I know goes into that in a lot of detail. And we do that by listening. It's by far the biggest, the most important aspect of what we do. And please understand that we do know, and we're trying to build a culture of the school, understanding that what we do is formative, that your child is a work in progress. And all we can do, once we know them, as well as we can know them, is offer the best advice possible. We're not going to make choices for them. I'll talk about that in a little while. Okay, some technical things, some details. We do offer resources, Zoom, team calls with people like Mr. Mills, one-to-one meetings with myself, access to UCAS, which is the United Kingdom's clearance system for universities, the Common App in the States, which I've already put some links and I've got plenty of resources to do with the Common App and with UCAS that I can give you. College Board and Unifrog. I know that Mr. Mills has just come out of a meeting with Unifrog, so he might want to touch on that. Fantastic, relatively new company, I think, Mr. Mills.
Yep.
Yeah,
Can we talk about now or later?
Well, let's come back to it later if that's all right. But a very well put together company, from what I know, from my experience. Support from Crimson as well, which is another very well connected company, although that will cost you. Letters of recommendation. I want you to know that myself and Mr. Hutchinson I've used the word oversight here. I'm underplaying it a little bit. Absolutely everything that a student asks for and is written, if it's written by a teacher, that will not go anywhere unless myself and Mr. Hutchinson have seen it and approved it and made sure that we are making the right statements for that child going to that university. Okay, it's incredibly important. What role do we play? Okay, we support students' necessary documentation, academic transcripts, put your requests in wherever it is you've made your decision about going. We make predicted grades, recommendation letters we just talked about. We can point in the right direction for scholarship or financial aid advice. We can't give that advice ourselves, but we can connect you with it. And again, connection with university admissions all over the world. Now, SATs, in particular, we have good contacts with ESTEP run by Mr. Carl Curler. He actually helped us out really well a couple of weeks ago in the DP retreat. I've been giving a great introduction to his company and what they do. I know that they're offering a free diagnostic test right now. So if you were to click on the link that I will be able to get to you after the meeting, I think that these diagnostics are, I think that they're live, and they will tell you your suitability for and your approximate, I think your approximate level of where you might be at a SAT, and they can put you in touch with tutors as well. Of course, all of these things are extramural and they're paid for. But if you are going, if your child is interested in the States, then SATs, Mr. Mills will talk about these again in particular, but yeah, it's highly recommended that your child consider studying for the SATs. So yes, deadline awareness. We make sure that nobody has forgotten what they're supposed to be doing, that they know in the first place and they don't forget. So SAT registration deadlines. Again, with SATs, it's extra. We're not a SAT testing center here, but ESTEP are. So we just make sure that if you want to do that, you've got the email address, you've got the phone number, you've got the name, and you know the timelines. Then the rest, of course, is up to yourselves. Application deadlines and processes for any area in the world, that's what we do as well. We make sure that you know. Again, I keep coming back to this. We've got to know the child, and they've got to know that they're only a year or two away from running all aspects of their own lives. So they need to take quite a lot of responsibility for all. Of course, you will support them, we will support them. But at the end of the day, they're practicing for when the training wheels aren't there, that they are on their own in that country, they're doing their laundry, all of that stuff. And yes, they've got to learn how to do that at the same time as getting through the DP. So it's a very important time. Scholarship application deadlines, again, they will be particular to universities or colleges, but we will make sure that students are looking for these things. Student visa applications, same thing exactly. Okay, so their common app, UCAS, universities New Zealand, Australian universities, top universities in Asia, Canadian, and study in the EU. I've tried to cover quite a few of the main places in the world where people seem to want to go. I would now talk about place and rankings and stuff like that, but I know for a fact that Mr. Mills is going to talk about that, so I won't steal his thunder. It's very important students consider where they're going and why. Okay, now I'm not going to go through this, but this is an example of the kind of thing that we'll be putting in front of your kids. So this is taken from, I think I got this from the College Board site. So this breaks down for students wanting to go to the United States of America, what they should be doing in September, October, November of year 13. And again, what they should be doing in the winter and then in the spring. Okay, these are things we don't do. We do not treat students as if they're all the same, like this is automatic. I'm a big believer in making students understand that there is no requirement or expectation from the school or from the world, as far as I'm concerned, that they have to do a particular thing. I know that if at least one of my children thought about it again, probably wouldn't go to university. So I just want all students to know and all parents to know that we do not treat students all the same. We treat them as individuals. We don't make choices for them or fill out forms. We don't organize SATs. We don't make assumptions. and we don't make summative decisions about this work in progress that is the child. We know that this is a work in progress, and we are working with them to help them get closer to be what it is they're trying to be. So I made a little diagnostic diagram here. So are students ready to be filling in application forms? If we look on the left of the screen here, they are, if they can answer yes to this question. Have they given the same amount of consideration to their options after ACG, such as university, non-university? If they haven't considered the option of non-university, then I don't think they're ready to start filling in forms. It might only take them 5 minutes, 100%. They go, oh, I hadn't considered it. Nah, I'm not interested. I'm going to university. So you've got your 3 different options. Yes, totally. They're set on university, and they can tell you why. They can tell you exactly why it fits with their passions, their skills, their aims. At the other end of the spectrum, no, they haven't made any thoughts about this, no inroads into that, but they might be interested in thinking about that. Or they might be right in the middle. They've thought about it, but feel like they've got to go to university. So anyway, this question for me is at the beginning. So when kids come into my office, and this is what they'll be doing, year 13 should definitely be making appointments with me before the October break. Just come and tell me about their ideas, tell me about their skills, and tell me about their passions and how they fit with their long-term goals if they've got some. Year 13s have priority for meeting times. Years 10 to 12, they can make appointments absolutely anytime. We're not in a big hurry, but what we're interested in is starting conversation early so that, as I said at the outset, we get to know who that child is. And once that child knows, we know who they are, then I think an awful lot more trust is built. And we only get that really through a consistent approach, always talking, always listening, knowing their names, knowing what it is they're good at, all that stuff. That's what we're starting to really build this year. Right now, they could be doing individual research into universities, different countries, different apprenticeships. It's always a good idea. And they should always keep this information organized in the digital portfolio. Just so you know, within the advisory lessons, we will be helping all 10 to 13s build digital portfolios, how to write personal statements, how to write letters of application, and how to really present themselves in the best possible light. That was me. I think that was about 13 minutes. Not so bad. What do you think, Mr. Mills?
I thought it was really good.
Okay.
I found it really good, man.
That's lovely.
Well done.
Okay, so Mr. Mills is going to be, are you a host at the moment, Mr. Mills?
No.
I don't think you need to be. You can just tell me when to change the slides, okay?
If you don't mind, that'll work out best. Is that okay, sir?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Okay, so we'll go to choices first, please. So this is what I present to a lot of year 10 and 11 students. The first point I make is that the choice to go to university and what degree to do has to rest with the student. Like all of us, I'm a parent, and we all want the best for our children. But there is too much free time, and university is too hard for a student to do well if they don't love the subject, if they don't love the degree, and they don't love the university. I know on paper, a decision will seem very obvious to a parent, but the student has to want it, okay? That's something that I cannot stress enough. It's got to come from the student. The next thing is, no one likes to be told what to do. No one likes to be dictated to. So a student wants to have the widest amount of choice. And the widest amount of choice comes from having high marks, finance, a good work ethic, and information. Information about the university, about the degree, what's required. When they leave ACG Jakarta, they need to have university entrance, They've got to be able to get in to where they want to go. They have to have a proven study routine, something they can rely on, because university is tough, and many universities have competitive entry after their first year. So a student really needs to have a robust study routine. And they need to be self-aware. They need to know, what do they need to succeed? The whole point of university, the one thing we all want from a university, is to graduate. It doesn't matter if you enroll at Stanford if you drop out. You're better off enrolling at a university you will graduate from, because by graduating, you get to go to the next level. You get to fulfill the dream, get the goal, get the job. Now, I always tell students, try to keep it simple. It's good to have a dream or a goal, but don't forget the basics. And what are the basics? The basics are, and this is really annoying for a lot of students, meet your deadlines, engage in class, prepare for exams. It's that simple. That's a formula. Deadlines, don't miss an assignment. You know when things are due. Teachers don't surprise you, okay? Engage in class. You don't have to get an A, okay? You don't have to be the standout student, but you have to participate in the class, because, as we'll learn later, 50% of a student's application to a university is the school's input, and the school will base their input on how engaged the student was. So if they can engage early, that is gold, okay? If they do that, that's going to allow the student to be the best student they can be, okay? So now we'll go to the next slide, please, sir. Popular myths versus the truth, okay? The first myth is university is for smart people. It's not. It's really not. It's for anyone who's willing to work hard, make a commitment to do well, and meet the standards desired. Some students, they really have a lot of anxiety. They worry. They go, oh, I don't know if I'm smart enough. They're not the ones that get the prizes, but they still want to go to university, but they worry if they'll be able to do it. Yes, they will. It's that simple. If they can just make that commitment and do the work, they will do well at university. Now, the next myth, that universities all have the same entry standards. No, they don't, okay? Universities can and do impose their own entry level requirements. Myth, if I pay enough, they have to take me. No, they don't. It's a very simple equation. Every time you ask a question, there's two possible answers, yes or no. It's exactly the same with a university. If you apply to a university, you are asking if you can go. They can say no. So you need to give them what they want, okay? So investigate what they want early. Go to the next slide, sir. So, what are the real choices that you have, okay? The real choice is which university to choose. Well, excuse me. The first thing to look at is, do they offer the degree that the student wants to do? A lot of universities have a great name, okay? Wonderful names, wonderful world rankings. But if they don't offer the degree the student wants to do, it's a waste of time, okay? It's pointless in our country, in New Zealand. If you want to be a vet, there's only one university you can go to. So you have no choice. If you want to be a doctor, there's only two. So you have to see what the university is actually going to offer. Then you look at cost, location, and what does the student want out of a university? We've talked about this. Graduation. They have to do well. And the student's going to live there for the next 3 to 4 years. So they have to enjoy the climate, the culture, the society, all sorts of things. Now, some universities are a lot more competitive than others, okay? So what sort of student are we looking at here? Do they thrive on competition? Do they need a lot of academic support? You need to work these things out so you can figure out where's the place a student is going to succeed, okay? So bottom line, a student needs to find the university that suits them, that fits their needs and gives them what they want. Okay? Now we'll go to the next slide, sir. This is huge. If you want to go to certain regions of the world to university, if you want America, if you want the UK, if you want some of the top Japanese or Singapore universities, or some of the top ones in Hong Kong, you have to have a why. There has to be a reason that the student wants to do it. It could be a dream they've had, the best place to get the degree, an experience they want. You can't simply apply to a university and say, what a great university you are, I want to come. You've got to have a reason. The top universities in the world know that they're really good. They don't need to be told that. So when they see an application, they want to look and see, why is this student applying to us? What makes them a must-have for us? Okay, so a student needs to know their why, and it's a good thing to talk about with your sons and daughters. Next one, sir. Okay, so there are 4 popular regions. There's a massive amount of choice, but you need to find the university that gives you the return on investment. Okay, now that could be all sorts of things. It's not money. It could be happiness, graduation, satisfaction, great accommodation. So you need to look at what is really out there. For example, United States, there's over 4,000 universities there. But there's only 400 that are really worth the effort. In the UK, there's 1,500 universities. You can get that down to about 100. Australia and New Zealand, out of 50, get it down to 25. So you see, it involves a lot of investigation and looking and realizing what you want, what the student wants. And as a parent, you've got to look and think, okay, what's really going to allow my student, my child, my son, my daughter to do well, to be the best they can be there, okay? So it's important to look at that. We'll go to the next slide, sir. Finances. Now, this is often not a pleasant conversation. Different regions have different costs. Some are not so, are cheaper than others. There's not a lot of scholarships out there if you're not careful, okay? It's not a good idea to look for a scholarship, then the university. You're better to find the university and then look for the scholarships that university offers, okay? It's a good idea to know what you're comfortable paying and what you're not. For example, if you wanted to go to LSE, London School of Economics, and do a law degree, that's going to cost you £21,590. That's a lot of money. That's per year. You need to be aware of that, okay? So with scholarships, the other thing, what universities are doing now is they offer partial scholarships. So you won't get the full ride. You won't get a whole year or the whole degree. You might get a $5,000 or a $6,000 scholarship. Be wary of accepting those, because it's nice to get the money, but you're still going to have to pay the difference. That is something to think about. We'll go to the next slide, sir. Now, we mentioned Unifrog earlier. It's an odd name, but what it is, it's a really good company that is going to work with ACG schools, and it's going to provide students with a great structure to build their applications on. It's a great search engine. It shows them all the universities in the region that they're thinking of. So that's really going to help a student figure out where they want to go. So how does it work? A student should find the university they want. The student then checks what the university wants in terms of marks, transcripts, letters, and who supplies it. Now, it's important to let the school know early what's going to be needed, because as I said earlier, half of the application is going to come from the school. The recommendations, the transcripts, predicted grades, things like that. And that takes time. For example, In New Zealand, our school year finishes around about the 6th of December, but applications to the UK don't finish till, say, the 15th of January. So a student could hypothetically apply on the 10th of January and be fine, and yet it'll fail because there's no one at school. Everyone's on holiday. So a student needs to work out the timeline. When is the school open? When can I get access to a teacher to help and support me? It's pointless applying when the school is closed down. So you need to know things like that. You need to be aware of the important application dates. They won't move, and they're pretty unforgiving. This year is slightly different because of the COVID crisis, but usually long term, a couple of years, they will be as rigid as they used to be. Now, universities will make conditional offers, but it will always depend on your final exam results. So I've seen a couple of students, they get a conditional offer, and then they take the foot off the gas and they don't do well on the exams and they don't live up to the conditions of the offer and they don't get in. Now, your final exam results will be sent automatically to the university, and that's when they will make their final offer and decision. So let's look at the USA. So in the United States, an undergraduate degree takes 4 years. Tuition is going to cost anywhere from $12,000 to $90,000 per year. You apply through the Common App. That's an online organization, and one application goes to all the universities you apply to. So you have to be careful in what you write. For example, if you're applying to NYU, Berkeley, and a couple of other universities that you think will be safe ones, you can't say, for example, I love NYU, I really want to go, because the other universities, they will see that and arguably not love that. So you need to be careful what you say. Now, you can't do law or medicine as an undergraduate. It has to be a postgraduate degree, a second degree. Now, a degree from the United States is not a green card. After you graduate, depending on your degree, you can either work for 12 months or 36 months after graduation. After that, you have to go. The scholarships, I've mentioned those before. There's not a lot. There are some, but there's not a lot. You really have to persevere and what I call dig or mine a university website to see what's available. Now, there is a detailed application process, okay? A student is going to need good marks, a great personal statement, and at least a couple of years of community service, of doing things for other people. Now, this is a conversation that can go for a long time, but I'll just touch on it here. They don't want random acts of kindness. They don't want a random act for the community. They want to see if a student likes a certain thing, if they have a passion for a certain thing, how have they used that to help other people? Many students say, I do CAS. I do CAS as part of the IB. Isn't that enough? No, it's a good start, but you need to build on it a little. You've got to realize, getting into the United States, you're competing against people who have been practicing and training and preparing since year 7, year 8. So you want to make sure you have done it properly. Now, the school reference is vital. So that's why you engage in class. As I mentioned earlier, it shows the school that you're part of the school community. They will write that, and that is vital to a US university. They want to see engaged students. They've got enough students that sit in the back of the class and do nothing. They want people who will be part of their community. A university will evaluate your application holistically, i.e. they look at everything. They'll look at the marks, they'll look at the SAT, good letter of support from the school, a passion the university can see, volunteer. Now, I'm going to touch on the SAT and the ACT. This year, for applicants who are applying for next year, a lot of universities are making the SAT either voluntary or not applicable. They're just not going to look at it. I don't know how long it's going to last. The SAT is viewed by a lot of people in America as not necessarily being fair. And given the various political climates out there, be careful. Have a look at what the university says on its website. Do they want the SAT or not? If they don't want the SAT, one of the questions is there something else they want? No, they don't. What they will do is they look at the rest of your application a little more carefully. So make sure you've got everything else there. Now, what's a rough guide to a good mark? So for a good university, 35 plus an IB. If you want a great university, 40 plus. The better your marks, the better your chances. Okay, we'll go to the next country, sir. Oh, no, SAT. We've dealt with that, so we'll skip. Okay. United Kingdom. Now we'll go to the, yep, thank you, sir. United Kingdom. So, great universities need great marks. It's that simple. There's no shortcuts. It's expensive. Internationals, which is anyone who has not completed the last 3 years of their schooling in the UK. So you can have an English father or mother, doesn't matter. If you did the last 3 years of your schooling somewhere else, you are an international applicant. Once again, there's not a lot of scholarships. There are some, so you need to look at the university. You apply through the UCAS website, which is very similar to the Common Apps, only it's for the UK. The UK don't really care about community service. They don't see it as a good thing or a bad thing. They just literally don't mind. What they care about is they want to see evidence of how a student has challenged themselves intellectually outside school, okay? So if you were an applicant and you loved chemistry, if chemistry was your thing, the university you applied to would expect to see a great pass in class, but also how have you tested yourself outside the classroom? Have you done extra reading? Have you done extra experiments? Have you gone to extra lectures? What have you done? You need to show them something. Okay, the school reference, once again, very important. Okay? When you're applying to a university, both in the UK and the US, don't talk about the specific university. Talk about the degree, why you love it, what it's going to mean to you, how they teach that degree at the university. That is what they want to hear. They want to see what you're going to do with that knowledge. We'll go to the next one, please, sir. Australia or New Zealand? Well, good news, it's just about the marks. You don't need to do any community service and you don't need to show extra academic credit anywhere, unless you want to go to a place called ANU, the Australian National University in Canberra. They want a reference, a transcript, and evidence of community service for 2 years. But everywhere else, Melbourne, Sydney, UWA, New Zealand, it's all about the final grades, okay? Now, some universities in Australia won't allow students to do law or medicine until they have an undergraduate degree. In New Zealand, you can do law and medicine as an undergraduate degree. There's not as many scholarships as you'd think or like, but there are some. Certainly from accommodation providers. Now, there is something to think about. When you apply for accommodation in New Zealand and Australia, it's going to cost about $15,000 to $20,000 a year. And it's quite possible you might get a scholarship for $5,000. That's still $15,000 you have to come up with. Now, the accommodation application will need a reference from the school. Going to the university won't, but accommodation certainly will. Okay. Asia Pacific. Now, this is a region that Mr. Todd would probably know a lot better than I and Mr. Hutchinson, but I do know they have rigid application processes. They will need a transcript, school recommendation, and predicted grades. Once again, you may receive a conditional offer, but what matters most is going to be your external grade. Same basic rules, top university needs top grades, okay? It can be a great experience for students of all nationalities though. There's a lot of top universities in that region. Now, next page, sir. Ways students can help themselves. Prepare early. Look at where they want and what degree they want. Learn what the student needs to do, okay? The university will have it. They publicize, do these subjects. We want this background, okay? So look early and work with your child and figure out exactly the subject path they need to go. Plan, create a game plan. Know the application dates. Know when they open and close. Learn the phrases used by the university. Plan your summer. And by that I mean, in summer, often we have 4 to 6 weeks off. Now, it's possible to do absolutely nothing, and that's fine. But if you want to go to America or you want to go to the UK, that is ideal time to do community service, to do an academic achievement award, to take part in extra classes. Utilize that downtime, okay? Volunteer aid programs, get involved in leadership programs. Engage in class, we've mentioned this. Universities in the US and the UK want the school to provide an in-depth report about the student. And it won't be from the favorite teacher. It'll be from Mr. Todd, for example, and he will probably look at the reports and the comments over the years. So if you can engage in the class, you give us positive things to write about. Be careful of a student's electronic footprint. Okay, advise them to get rid of the funny or hilarious email address. Get a serious one. Because universities will look at Facebook, they look at Instagram, they notice these things, they build a profile of who the student is. So be careful of an electronic footprint. So the next steps. Students need to think where and why. They should attend overseas visits to the campus if they can. It'll give them a way to work out what they should be looking for, what the unique features and standard, what is standard service. Work out who's paying. It's going to be a tough conversation, but if you know early what you can afford as a family and what you can't, it'll help the student work out where they should look. Know what's required. Okay, they may not know exactly what they want to do, but they know what a program's requirements are going to be. For example, they may say, I want to be a scientist. I don't know what sort of scientist. But knowing that, you would take chemistry because chemistry is part of all science degrees. Plan the campaign, use summers, participate in life after school, okay? Remember, the same activities that impress the US and the UK will often impress scholarship panels, okay? So it's worth doing them. Investigate universities yourself, but feel free to ask me what you cannot find, but I would suggest you start doing the work. I think that's about it, sir.
Oh, it's brilliant.
Oh, quick questions.
Yes.
Okay.
Did you want to? You want
Now,
to? Do,
I think we'll just skip to any questions that the group has because I don't know if these ones apply to Jakarta.
all right. Okay. Okay.
I think I've mentioned most of that.
Yeah. I think you did too.
Yeah. I think we'll go to general questions if anyone has any.
Okay. Yeah. If you wouldn't mind, everybody, I'm just trying to stop the screen sharing. Where's it gone? There we go. If you wouldn't mind, if you've got a question, not quite sure. Are you still seeing my screen?
Yes, I'm seeing the PowerPoint.
I'm clicking stop share, but it's not really working. This is a bit odd. Okay. Give me a second. I'll pause it. Now I'll stop it. Here we go.
There we go.
Let's get rid of it. Okay, so if you've got a question, ladies and gentlemen, and I think there's a few in the chat. Got a question, please. Can you use the raise hand facilities? Is it there? Can we see raise hand? And then just say who the question is for. But I'm looking at some comments. One of them I can answer straight away. I think our kids should be listening to this too. Absolutely, 100%, Shirley. We used this almost exact same presentation with 12s and 13s in the DP retreats just a couple of weeks ago. But I did make myself a note actually during Mr. Mills' presentation that I think that a big chunk of this we could be presenting all the way down to year 10, and talking about, you know, some of these things that Mr. Mills was talking about being engaged in school life, about volunteering, about not having a silly email address like mine. And we could be working with kids at a much earlier point in school. So I take your point exactly. Let's just have a look. I think our kids agree. We'll tell them to watch the recording. Yeah, okay, agree. Can the school mandate it? Yes, we'll make sure they do it, Shirley, don't worry. Kai has left, they've got to work, sorry about that. Okay, from Sridhar, my son is in year 11. Can you help us with the progress we need to make in the application process in year 11, 12 respectively? In year 11 and 12, there are no points in the application. Mr. Mills will correct me if I'm wrong. There are no points in the application process for universities anywhere in the world that they need to do in year 11 or 12. Everything starts in the fall, so September, October, November of year 13. Am I right, Mr. Mills?
You certainly are. I mean, I think the best thing a student can do would be to prepare, to start to make sure they're engaged in class, getting good marks, and start having a look at the universities out there. Because when you first start, everywhere is an option. Everywhere is great. And then you start to apply the filters. Where can we afford? What do they offer the degree I want? Will I actually pass? And that'll whittle it right down. You can do a lot of that work early. And so when you start year 13, you've already got your short list of 5 or 6.
Yeah, exactly. And that's why we're, you know, I think if we're talking with 7, 8, 9, and we're talking about the course choices that they make in year 9 for year 10, and the course they're making in year 11 for year 12, this is why this has to be an ongoing conversation and viewing not only the children that we're working with as works in progress, but so the children can view their educational career path as a work in progress, because things change, you know, but the longer that they're thinking about it and talking with others, talking with their peers, talking with their teachers and advisors, then the more chance they've got of having a coherent idea about what makes sense for them by the time it gets to applications and things like that. But applications in 13, definitely. Weena says, what are your views on using agents for uni applications? There have been some agents approaching us, especially for Australian universities. Okay, the one difference between agencies, sorry, there are 2 main differences. Mr. Mills will definitely be more precise in the answer. The views on agents, university, at school, we don't charge extra for any of our services. Agents do. Agents probably offer what might be called a very complete service, where they take documents from you and they deliver them and stuff like that. But in all of my experience, I used to work in Beijing in China before this, and there were probably more agents in Beijing than there were cars on the road. A very large number. I'm not saying that they can't be useful. Of course they can be useful. They should know what they're doing. But I would not go there as a first resort. I would have that conversation with myself. Would you want to add anything to that, Mr. Mills?
I'd point out a couple of things. No one can ever sell you a guarantee. If anyone ever tries to sell you a guarantee, they're lying. It's that simple. And I know this because if you actually speak to the universities and you say, you know, is it possible? And they'll say, no, can't do it. So be wary of that. Secondly, if someone is asking you to part with a great deal of money to help, to assist, don't be shy. Don't be scared to phone the university, any university, and get their opinion of that agent. See what they say, because they're the end product. They're not going to hold it against you for asking this question. Get their opinion, because that can help you decide, because it's a nervous time. We worry, if I don't pay, am I depriving my child? Not really. But it's your money, and you've got to be comfortable with how you spend it. All I would suggest is investigate the ethics and investigate what the universities think of certain agents. And there are some agents universities endorse, and they say, yes, we use them ourselves, that we're good with that. In which case, that would be a good indicator that they are probably worth the money. But sometimes you'll get a university and they'll say, no, wouldn't go there. That would be an indicator. That's my thoughts there, boss.
Thank you very much. Mr. Tenhav, Eric, what have you got for us?
Yeah, so this is a bit of an off-topic question, but what is the best way for the children and for ACG to look at what's best for them as a next step? In my view, university is only one option. There could be many other ways in which the child wants to develop itself, and the focus of this conversation is very much on the academic next step, which sort of is assumed to be university. But it could very well be that it's a year in which they do something completely different first. It could be exploring ways to live their lives beyond university, which don't necessarily require an academic degree. More and more jobs are completely, not in need of a university degree. So I would like to just ask the question, what is ACG and what are you doing to take a bit more of an holistic approach to where the children want to be and what they want to do? And I know they're young, and that I know from my own daughter that it's not so clear, not so easy for them to talk about this, but ultimately that is the question. What do they want to do with their life, and whether or not university is part of that is actually a second question. That's not the first question to ask, I think.
I completely and 100% agree. I'm not sure if you were here for the first 5 minutes of the meeting, but I did actually address this. But I'm really glad you brought it up again, because what are we doing? Well, this was for a reason called a university prep guidance session, because it is predominantly about that. But what I said at the beginning was that if you want to help a student do anything, then you have to know who that person is, right? So we're instigating earlier, more in-depth and more constantly happening, frequently happening conversations between teachers, advisors, administrators, and students, so that we understand what makes them tick, what their talents are, what their passions and their skills are, and how that relates to what they should do after they finish school. And I'm definitely an advocate for understanding that university is, it's an option, but that's all it is. It's an option, and it isn't best for everybody. Everybody does not need to go to university. I completely agree. So what are we doing? We're starting those conversations early. A lot of the UK and some of the US information on the College Board website and on the UCAS website actually talks about apprenticeships as well. So that's definitely an angle that we'd like to explore. In school, we're actually trying to put tentative markers down about internship contacts, so that we can get kids looking at doing something while they're still at school that's involved with the real workplace, the real world workplace. I know that's not a specific, it's not a program, I can't give you any dates, but yes, 100% agree with you. We are starting the process of making sure that kids understand it's not a foregone conclusion, it isn't best for everybody, it's an option. Mr. Mills, do you want to add anything to that?
Yeah, I think as an organisation, ACG, I think we do have a strong focus on university, but it's not an exclusive one. We realise that there are a lot of students that don't want to go to university or don't know. When I'm faced with that, when I talk with a student and they say, I really don't know, we look at the concept of the gap year. We look at the concept of make the right choice for you. One thing I always point out, I never apologize for, make the choice yours. Okay, you may not want to go to university, and that's absolutely fine, but make it your choice. Get entrance, get university entrance, so you can go if you wish later. Now, Unifrog, one of the company that we've just partnered with, one of the things that their product does is the student will put in their likes, dislikes, subjects, and one of the questions it's going to ask is, do you want to go to university? And if the answer is no, instead of filling up your inbox with university options, it fills it up with possible apprenticeship options, possible options for you to look at in your region that don't require university. So there's that, but that's coming. It's not here now, but it will be here probably in a couple of months. I like to think we try to be as open-minded as we can. We don't railroad any student. And if a student's unsure, we talk to them. I tend to go with, do what makes you happy. If there's something you enjoy doing, pursue it. And if it doesn't involve university, well, that's fine. I try to make sure that they're on the same page as mum and dad, because that's a nasty place to get in between. But I do tend to think we support them. We don't have a program in place now, no. I think the Unifrog thing would be quite a good thing. That's pretty much all I have on that, I'm afraid.
Oh, that's great. One of the things I just want to add to that, though, Eric, is that interestingly, you know, I think I'll go do this as a little project, an exercise. I'm going to go back through my slides and Mr. Mill's slides. I'm going to extract all of the parts that could easily be replicated in a presentation about not going to university, because so many of the skills and the dispositions would be replicated. You know, the things that we need them to do is be engaged, be proactive, volunteer, do extra things that they're interested in. So I think there's an awful lot of overlap. Mr. Sean Hutchinson, who I believe has 2 students in the school at the moment, you got a question for us?
Hi, folks. I actually promised Richard that I wasn't going to say anything, but I can't help myself. And I just wanted to just follow on from Eric's comments. I think the digital portfolios that we are getting students to develop are a really good vehicle to help students develop a plan. So alternatives to universities are really critical for some students, but I think it's important to understand as a parent or as an educator that a student may come to you and say, well, I want a gap year, but they actually haven't done any planning. They haven't developed their own kind of digital portfolio and plan for themselves for the future. And so inevitably, things may not work out the way in which they had hoped. So I think, having some structure and some guidelines around what are the possible alternatives to university pathways, I think is really important. We don't, you're right, Eric, we don't explicitly and often talk about vocational training, talk about internships, work experience, talking about entrepreneurialism and starting my own company and these types of really important conversations that need to be had with young people, so that they're not just simply following a path that is consistent with everybody else around them, but perhaps thinking more deeply about what their future plan is. So I think as a school, we have a responsibility, not only at a one-to-one level, but also, across the different groups of students that we're working with to talk about those alternatives. So, that's certainly something that Unifrog does give you some structure as a platform to ask. Some of the things is that young people won't generally, they'll need some prompting or some questions that they have to consider before they then start to think about developing that plan. So we need to be able to provide that. We need to kind of front load that so that they can start to think about that right at the early stages. So that's really just my 2 bobs worth. I'm going to be quiet now and let Guy and Richard continue on.
Okay, thank you, Sean. So it's 11 o'clock. We've got no new questions on the chat. That's okay. I really do want to just re-emphasize again one more time that this is an ongoing conversation. This isn't just a single university prep session. We've already done one with the kids. This is one for you. We want to keep the conversation open, keep it flowing, more questions, because we are trying to build a culture of sharing information, a culture of communication. So at any point, please ask the question. You know, I think already that if we don't know the answer, we'll tell you we don't know, and then we'll try our best to find out. So I'd like to thank Mr. Mills for his fabulous presentation all the way from New Zealand. It's about wrapping up time for you, Mr. Mills, am I correct?
I'm afraid so. I'm going to play with the traffic now.
Okay, all right. Well, thank you very much, Mr. Mills. Thank you very much, everybody else, for turning up. 32 people came to our meeting today. That's fantastic. I'll try and make the recording available to you, and I'll make sure that all of the documents that I put in the chat actually get to you somehow, all the documents and the links. So with that, I will say à bientôt, as they say in French, bye-bye, and dada, I think, in Bahasa. And have a great weekend, and we'll see you sooner rather than later. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Bye-bye.